So glad you could be here today for our conversation with the region on local food and agriculture. I'm Rob Rumpke. I'm the president and CEO of Bluegrass Tomorrow. This is sort of a tiptoe through the tulips for me. Being in a venue like this. I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, and the Carthage Fair, the old Hamilton County Fair, was right outside my back door, and we used to sneak under the fences and check out the fair every year. My dad was a farmer. My great uncle was a farmer. You might know Rumpke Incorporated. It started on a livestock farm. My great uncle didn't have enough money to feed his hogs and feed his cattle and livestock during the Depression, and started collecting scraps from neighbors to feed his livestock and keep his livestock alive. And hence Rumpke Incorporated was formed. And for years he fed the livestock off the landfill, so he didn't have any money into his livestock until the EPA got after him in the mid-70s. He used the livestock and the farming aspect of it to buy trucks and expand the business. When he died, he was the richest man in the state of Ohio. He used to always joke it was a cash cow operation. So anyway, that's my background. It is good to be here. It's a most unique venue in terms of meetings that we've had. I want to thank the committee that has worked so hard on this. I think you know many of them. Bobby Clark, Sandy Cannon, Norma Taylor, Tristine Loxton, and Blaine Early. If you guys would stand up and just be recognized. Thank you for all your hard work. And you'll be hearing lots from them throughout the day. If you look at your program, the front of the program, you have Kentucky Proud, First Security Bank, and Columbia Gas. We really want to thank them as presenting sponsors. Then on the back of your program are all of our Bluegrass Forever Green corporate partners. So please say thank you to them as you see them throughout the day. If you're wondering, Bluegrass Tomorrow is an 18-county organization. We are the first tier of counties around Lexington, and then the second tier of counties as well. So we focus on quality of life. We're in the quality of life business, and if you believe that we all do, I think, that quality of life and economic development are inextricably linked, that's what Bluegrass Tomorrow is all about. One side of one face of our organization is the education side of our organization, and we also facilitate the Bluegrass Higher Education Consortium and the 12 colleges and universities. The university presidents are the board. So that gives us sort of a power to convene, and certainly all of their agriculture departments are part of those initiatives, and it's aimed at kids and aimed at school kids and college and career awareness. That model is one that we really want to take a look at in terms of continuing this conversation and continuing the work that comes out of this session today. So certainly keep that in mind. The other side of our organization is Bluegrass Forever Green. It is the roots of Bluegrass Tomorrow. Bluegrass Tomorrow started when Toyota was being built, and Alex Warren, the president of Toyota, several key agriculture people, horse farmers, etc. Robert Clay, Bank One, and on and on and on, got involved to develop this quality of life organization at that time. And it was focused on land use planning, comprehensive planning, and keeping our precious bluegrass soils and agricultural lands operating in agriculture. So we're back to our roots at Bluegrass Tomorrow and what we're doing here today. The Conversations with the Region program, we just finished one on September the 29th, a very important conversation relating to land use, and it correlates very well with this one, and it's why we followed that one with ag. But some of the key takeaways from that And some key principles that we started at that event was that there's a fundamental need for regional land use planning. That may sound simple, but to come out of that discussion with that principle being the cornerstone principle led to the fact that we also want to create a regional land use commission. So this committee is staying together. We're actually meeting again next week. If you're interested in getting involved with that, let me know. Rob at bluegrasstomorrow.org, and we'll get you involved in a seat at the table in discussing these important issues. We've also done a conversation on water. We've done one on energy innovations. We've done one, and we're very heavily into trail building and development of trails and greenways in the Bluegrass region. The trail being built around the Kentucky Horse Park, the Legacy Trail up into Scott County. That's us promoting that extension and moving that forward. So we're doing lots of great things in that area. So all of these things fall under the umbrella of Bluegrass for Evergreen. So that gives you a feel for who Bluegrass Tomorrow is, why we're here, and why we're doing this program. So I think with that, we will move the program forward and bring up Bobby Clark, and he'll give you a little bit of an overview on how the day will go. One thing I do want to mention is the panelists will be sort of on a timing scenario, and if you see me come up in front of you and do 1 minute, and maybe the cut sign, we want to cut you off, all right? Or if I'm in the back of the room and I'm going to time you on this device. So if you see me hold that up, you need to stop, okay? Bobby will go over other ground rules. Here you go, Bob.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. My farm experience started when I was 15, 16 years old in western Kentucky, where I grew up. And I don't know about you, but I love the smell of manure in the morning. They had a cattle sale here last night, and I think this is a very unique venue, and happy to be one of the hosts today. Our purpose of the conversation is to raise the awareness of food and agriculture and related issues in the Bluegrass region, answering questions like, where are we? What are our primary challenges going forward? How do we compare to other and similar markets? And there's a whole list of another 15 or 20 questions. And how many of you, if this is the first time you sit down with other local food and agriculture to have a conversation? It's the first time. Only 2 or 3 people. Because there's been a lot of conversation about food and agriculture. I'm so excited because this is an opportunity to do some things that the consumers are beginning to ask for this. But it's so complex. There's so many stakeholders in this. We wanted to be the convener, as Rob had talked about, of how we bring the folks together, but not just for a conversation. As he referred to the Bluegrass Higher Education Consortium, we want to formalize this process going forward. The breakout groups that we've got this afternoon, I've got a kind of evaluation sheet of how we did, what we needed to do better, and what we did right. But we're going to also ask, would you like to volunteer and be part of one or more of these working groups so we can continue this discussion going forward. So we're going to get ready to have our 4 panels to talk about a variety of issues. As Rob said, they've got 5 minutes. And then after all 3 panelists speak, then we're going to open it up for 15 minutes of Q&A. And that way we can get, some of these people couldn't cover what they do in 5 minutes or even 20 minutes. So they're really trying to hit the highlights. So that's where Q&A comes in, and hopefully we'll get you engaged in the conversation. Then we will break for lunch. As you all came in, all those tables set up in the middle there. We're going to have lunch there, and then I'll hand out the kind of evaluation sheets at that particular point. Then we will break into our working group sessions. We originally were going to try to do 2 working groups back together, and then reality set in, and there's no way we could manage all of that logistically, so we merged that into one. But more importantly, after the working groups, is we're going to get together again in this room and we're going to have each group to report out for 5 minutes, and tell us what was brought up, and then engage the audience and participants in this process to list things that group, didn't cover. Because I think there's several people in this room who would like to go to 2 or 3 or all of these different working groups, and so this convening back together is the way to then let you say, hey, you missed this, or haven't you considered that? What we're going to do is, and then the commissioner will come at 3 o'clock. We're going to do a quick overview to the commissioner. This is what we discussed today. Here's the highlights. Let him speak for about 10 minutes, and then open it up again. He really likes the idea of a conversation. And so we're real excited about him being here. But what we're going to do when this is over, one, we're video recording this session and the afternoon session as well. We're going to make this available so that all these people that have stuff to contribute, that we can share that. But most importantly, we're going to develop a Survey Monkey report, because we want people that were here to kind of vote on the high priority areas, what we are missing. But there's 100 or 200 or 300 or 400 more people that would love to be here today that just couldn't make it, and we want to tap them. So when we get this Survey Monkey out, we want you and your organization to send this link out, and let's get more people. And then we hope to reconvene actually we want the working groups that we hope people sign up for will actually meet in January, February, or March, once or twice or whatever, and then we can reconvene and continue this discussion. And then how do we formalize this? What needs to be done? What resources are needed to advance this initiative, and then talk to the stakeholders and find a way to make this happen. So with that, I am proud to turn the mic over to Norma Taylor, who's going to introduce our panelists. We've been working together for a number of years on the Kentucky Commission of Small Business Advocacy in the late 90s, I think is when we started that. And so Norma?
I'd like to add my thanks and welcome. Appreciate y'all coming out on a cold one when I know it's a really busy day. Each of our panels has been asked to address the current state of local food efforts in their respective areas. As Rob and Bobby said, each panelist will have 5 minutes apiece and then 15 minutes of Q&A. And we're extremely fortunate to have a very committed and hardworking group of panelists, and we appreciate your participation. Our first panel represents the state of Kentucky and Kentucky Proud, the city of Louisville, and the city of Lexington, and have been asked to describe the existing local programs, future goals aimed at greater integration of local food into the areas they serve. So please welcome Tim Hughes, Deputy Director of the Agriculture Office of Marketing and Product Promotion, Ashton Wright, Lexington's Local Food Coordinator, and Theresa Zawacki, Senior Policy Advisor for Louisville Forward. If you all would come on down.
Ho, 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 and Merry Christmas. I bring greetings and gifts on behalf of the big man. No, not Santa Claus. Commissioner Ryan Quarles, Commissioner of Agriculture, and our Executive Director for Marketing, Dominic Landford. I passed out a few gifts for those that I know that are on the nice list. And on the front of those, there is a number. When I call the number, I'd like for you to pull out your gift. The first one is number 1. Where did I place number 1 at? Okay, this young lady has hit the jackpot. She has money. We received considerable funding from the Kentucky Agricultural Development Fund, and this isn't gifts. This is an investment in state agriculture made possible by the legislature and the state of Kentucky. When we give funds out for different grant projects, it's not, like I said, it's not a subsidy. It's an investment in growing Kentucky agriculture, growing local foods, and improving the state economy. Over $500 million has been paid out from the Ag Development Fund, and this has been a tremendous impact on Kentucky agriculture. We'll talk about a few of those investments and the programs that we have through the Kentucky Department of Agriculture. Who has number 2? If you want to pull out what you've got. Okay, we spend a considerable amount of money for print, TV, social media, and advertising. You'll notice on the back of the Edible magazine, there's a real nice story or article or an advertisement about Kentucky Proud and the focus on local farms. Throughout the whole magazine, there's a number of different products that are Kentucky Proud and other things that we're involved with. Number 3. Well, we went through the warehouse and we found some of these from a previous administration. I'm not going to say which one, but we thought we'd do good use of these. We actually spend quite a bit of money in different types of venues. We are a sponsor of the Derby Festival. We sponsor the Lexington Legends and a number of other events and venues around the state. Each time we do that, we make sure that they communicate the Kentucky Proud message, but also have a way of sourcing and selling local Kentucky farm products. Number 4. You just went to one of our Farm to Fork dinners where we feature a lot of locally sourced Kentucky agricultural products. We started this program last year. We had over 30 of these dinners around the state where we provide up to $500 to help local community leaders source and conduct these programs. These are a tremendous opportunity of engagement between the farmers and local community leaders, and are going over really well. We'll be doing that program again in 2018. Next is number 5. We have a wine connoisseur among us. We have a number of vineyards and wineries across the state. We receive a direct appropriation from the legislature to help with marketing costs, the distribution cost, and also general advertising for the wine industry of the state, and our emphasis on local grapes. These are a number of agritourism venues, and those are becoming really popular for destinations. That would mean the next is number 6. We have representation of our new Buy Local program. Many of you are familiar with the old restaurant rewards, where we would provide an incentive to restaurants for buying local products. We tweaked that program this year and really emphasized the agricultural product, the farm product, the Kentucky farmer role of that. We're trying to connect better with the restaurants and helping them identify Kentucky Proud products that truly are from local farms. She also has a nice coaster set that tells the story of different types of agriculture, the beef, the poultry, and things like that. We're going to be providing these to participants in that program, helping them communicate to their customers why they are Kentucky Proud and buying local. Next would be number 7. You just went to one of our over 500 agritourism venues in the state. These are great educational opportunities, great ways of sourcing and promoting local foods, getting people out of the urban communities into rural areas, learning about the importance of Kentucky agriculture. I believe next is number 8. Let's see there. We have a very nice truck. We're not giving trucks away, but you may see one of these at one of the over 160 local farmers markets. You'll also notice that that truck is decked out with Kentucky Proud. We have a program called Promotional Grants that we provide cost share for advertising and promotional expenses for members that are sourcing Kentucky farm products or farmers themselves. We provide up to 50% cost share. This shows the wrap that some of the people put on trailers and trucks, among the other types of advertising expenditures. Last would be number 9, I believe. Well, you got to the end of the free stuff. Now we're in the at-cost program. We purchase a number of items in bulk, like the shopping bags and the Kentucky Proud caps, and we make those available to Kentucky Proud members at our cost to help with the purchasing of those. I wish I could tell you about the other number of programs and services that we have in the Department of Agriculture. I'll be around afternoon throughout the day. Mr. Quarles will follow up with other things later today. Thank you.
It's warmer when you're standing. So I'm Theresa Zawacki. I'm Senior Policy Advisor to Louisville Forward, which is Louisville Metro Government's merged community and economic development agency. And I oversee a set of initiatives that are aimed at bringing more food produced by Kentucky farmers into the city, and also into other organizations and places around Kentucky. And so you may have heard of the Louisville Farm to Table program. That is our capstone food initiative. And we have 2 sets of activities that the Louisville Farm to Table program conducts. The first is to promote the growing and raising of food among Kentucky farmers, to give them reasons to want to convert from maybe traditional production that they've had over the course of their farm history to producing more food, but also to build the market opportunities for those farmers, because it's silly to produce something for which you have no market. And so we try to create a push on the farmer side of things and a pull on the market side of things to increase the amount of local food that's available for a variety of purposes, whether it's for yourself, for home consumption, whether it's for an organization that you oversee, whether it's for a school, a hospital, an academic institution like the University of Kentucky. We want all those places to have an easier time finding and buying and using local food. So I could spend a ton of time talking about those things, but I wanted to sort of set up Ashton by sharing a couple of just big picture observations about the work of local food. Because I think Bobby actually framed up really nicely that there's been a lot of conversation about local food, and there have been a lot of really important advancements, a lot of expansion, a lot more opportunity created in the local food system. But there are still lots of challenges, and whether it's challenges in aggregation and distribution, whether it's challenges in processing and getting that food into a form that chefs can use, or that individual consumers can use, there are lots of things that still need to be resolved to make local food an easy choice for people of all types, whether you're an individual consumer or a chef working in a hospital or a school system. And so there's two things that I want to talk a little bit about super briefly. And so I'm going to ask you all to answer a couple of questions. Just raise your hand. So who among you remembers a time when the iPhone was coming out and you thought, oh my gosh, that's the coolest thing since sliced bread. I've got to get in line at the Apple store right now and get that phone because it's the biggest thing that I've seen in a long time and I really have to have one. Okay, cool. So, among you now, who has an iPhone? Right, okay. So the point of that set of questions was to show that some people take a little time to acclimate to a new idea, and that's okay. Nobody raised their hand to say I stood in line at the Apple store to get that iPhone. Not one of you, and that's okay. But among us all, not in this room, but outside this room, there are those people who said, I've got to have that iPhone today, and I'm going to stand in line starting at midnight so that I'm there when the store opens at 9. And those folks are early adopters. They're going to go out and they're going to find that next big opportunity, and they're going to take advantage of it. And they're going to show all the rest of us how cool it was that they did that, and someday we're all going to have iPhones. And it happens the same way with local food systems. There are farmers out there who are saying, I'll try that, or I'm going to get involved in this from day one because I see the opportunity and I see that there's a really cool thing that I'm going to be part of. I'm going to be on the front end of it, and we need to do things to support those farmers. On the other hand, we need to not forget that there are all the rest of us, all the people who are maybe going to get there in the end, but are going to take a little while to get there, and there have to be reasons for it. We have to see the early adopters succeed. And those early adopters have to create space for us to get involved in those market opportunities. So the point of all of that is that we need room and we need to recognize the value of those early adopters in the local food community, but we also need to create space for people who might take a little bit more time to come along. The other observation that I'll share with you is that there's a place not just for all different kinds of adopters of things, but there's a place for all different sizes of communities in this work. And what I mean by that is that we need rural communities to see success. We need rural communities and residents of rural communities to have economic gain as a result of their participation in the local food system. On the other hand, we need cities of all shapes and sizes to come along and say, I'll create space for that. As a community, we will create space for local food within our food system. And whether that is through hosting a farmer's market or growing a farmer's market system, whether it is through promoting and highlighting the businesses in the community that are working with local food, restaurants, processors, folks like that, whether it is through intentional efforts to promote the use of local food among consumers of all shapes and sizes, there's a space for everyone in building a local food system. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ashton, who's going to share some really specific things.
So, good morning, everyone. I'm Ashton Potter Wright. I coordinate the Bluegrass Farm to Table program for the city of Lexington. Our goals with the Bluegrass Farm to Table program are very similar to what Theresa shared for Louisville Farm to Table, and that is to help create markets for new markets for producers of local food in not only Lexington, but the central Kentucky area and the state as a whole. And so I and Theresa, I know Sarah, get asked a lot, why isn't more local food here? Why isn't more local food there? And that's really what we're trying to work on a daily basis. And so I want to just quickly present some specific challenges that often get thrown in our faces by buyers who are trying to do that pull of local food. And then offer a couple of just quick examples of how, we haven't fixed the system, but examples on how we're addressing some of those challenges that people commonly cite. So just really quickly, some of the commonly cited challenges, and there are many, but seasonality of local food, inconsistent supply, logistics of delivery, which Theresa mentioned, really stringent institutional requirements around food safety, and of course, price point. Everybody wants to talk about price. So let me start with just seasonality of local food really quickly. Much of our local food, people want to point to produce, and certainly produce is seasonal in the state, although we do enjoy a very long growing season in Kentucky. Our farmers are using high tunnels and other season extension techniques to really be growing things year round. Along the same lines as for the produce vein, several growers around the state and processors are looking for ways to harvest produce in season and preserve it for year-round consumption. For example, we work with a farmer in LaRue County who received a federal value-added producer grant to purchase equipment that allows him to not only grow the produce, but process it, freeze it, and then sell it to distributors like Piazza Produce that can then filter that produce into larger institutions like the University of Kentucky, Big County Public Schools, and others. And so that's one way that people are getting around the season extension. What we also don't realize is that most of the local food we grow here isn't seasonal. Beef, we're at the stockyards, right? So beef is not seasonal. Other livestock products, poultry, eggs, those things can be produced year round. And so that's something that I really try to talk to buyers about when they try to throw up the barrier of, well, we can't get local food year round. We can. And we're taking strides to improve that. Inconsistent supply. So it's always supply and demand is the focal point of economics. And people, I talk to producers every day who say, if there's a market, I'll grow it, I'll scale. And buyers are saying, I can't get it, where's the local food? And what I've seen with some few select examples is producers in the state are very resourceful, are very entrepreneurial. They will rise to meet the demand of a market if the consistent market is offered. It may not be a formal contractual agreement, but something that's worked as a very firm handshake agreement, but with the intention of planning for the entire season. So one example that I like to talk about a lot is I work with Vinaigrette Salad Kitchen. So how many of you have eaten a salad from Vinaigrette? Yeah, they're exploding like wildfire. There's now 4 locations in Lexington, 1 in Louisville, 1 planned for Cincinnati, and I'm sure they have several more that they're anticipating opening. And they came to me when they first opened and wanted to talk about, obviously, produce. They're a salad place. They source a lot right now. You can get local kale on your salad from Crooked Row Farm if you go eat at Vinaigrette. But really, they joke, the operations director jokes that they're a chicken place that sells salad because chicken is the primary protein that they put on those salads. They offer other proteins, but chicken is by far the most popular. And so I started conversations with them several years ago about how can we do chicken, and they wanted boneless, skinless chicken breasts, right, that everybody wants. And part of my job, and Sarah and Theresa's, is to talk people out of using boneless, skinless chicken breast. Not out of it, but think more creatively about how to perhaps use chicken in your food preparation. Long story short, took several years, as everything does in this work, but have worked out an arrangement with 2 growers who are working cooperatively to meet Vinaigrette's needs, not only their current needs, which is about 800 pounds of chicken a week for their current 5 stores that'll expand. They came to an agreement on price. The farmers agreed to take a tiny bit less than what they would normally want for that product in exchange for Vinaigrette's total business, right? Vinaigrette has promised them we are going to scale with you. If you will compromise with us on price just a tiny bit, we are willing to give you all this business. And it's so lucrative that these two farmers are now in partnership, or talking to two additional farmers for next growing season, because they think that they're going to need to engage more folks to meet that demand. So that's a way we kind of address supply and price there, but that's one way. Another grower that actually in Scott County that I work with, he is working with at least 4 other farmers to provide produce to Kroger. And so he's obviously growing a large bit of it himself, but Kroger's demand exceeds his supply, so he's working with folks who meet his standards, who meet Kroger's standards, to kind of make that relationship happen. And Kroger's been really pleased with how that's gone. I'm not watching my time here, so just give me 1 minute. Okay. I'll talk about one more really quickly. So institutional requirements for quality. I'll hopefully maybe tee up something that Lily's going to say a little bit later. In the produce world, food safety, in all local food safety is important, but produce in particular, there's been a real push over the last few years towards requiring GAP audits. So for those of you who don't know GAP, good agricultural practices on farm food safety, making sure that the produce that's produced on the farm is safe when you get it. It can be very expensive. It doesn't have to be expensive, but it is a daunting process. There's a lot of paperwork, a lot of time involved for a small farmer. So Bluegrass Farm to Table, Louisville Farm to Table, the Hort Council, and the Food Connection at UK partnered 2 years ago we kept hearing the same thing over and over again. So we're like, what can we do about this? We came together, Hort Council and Food Connection put in some money, and we hired an extension associate who's housed in the University of Kentucky to provide one-on-one technical assistance to growers who want to obtain a food safety audit. So we obviously don't recommend folks, if their market doesn't require that audit, don't do it. But if many markets, particularly institutional markets, require that. And so that position that we put in place has really helped kind of provide that one-on-one direct assistance to farmers to help them gain a new market. And we're really excited about that. I think that we've had 5 or 6 folks be audited this growing season.
It's resulted in a 125% increase in the number of GAP audited farmers.
So before this position, there was like 3. I want to say like 3 GAP audited farmers in the entire state.
The percentages sound better.
Yeah, it does sound better. But 3 in the entire state of Kentucky. And so it's really significant when we're talking about moving local food into these larger volume institutional markets, which can result in hopefully more impact for So I'll be quiet now.
All right. So this is a conversation. It's time for conversation. Questions, comments from Kentucky crowd, Louisville, Lexington. Jump in there.
And please stand up and say who you are and then ask your question.
Don't be shy.
I'm Laura Freeman. I'm founded Largely Beef, and now I'm running kind of a circus called Mount Polly Enterprises. We are building a distillery with the whole point that it is all local grain, and you come to the pharmacy, the grain, and go to the distillery. Is there any state support for distilleries, micro distilleries? Second one is I'm also I put in a granary, so I've got a grinding and sifting operation for heritage corned beef. And I need to know what kind of you have product liability. What else would I need to start selling to institutions and how?
Tim, you might want to chime in on the state incentive piece too. So this is not my daily work, but there are likely to be some state level economic development incentives for the investment that you're making in the distillery. And it may be based on wages, it may be based on equipment purchases, it may be based on a set of other investments that you're making. And so I would encourage you to reach out to your county economic development folks to touch base on that question to see whether they can get you, and they will be able to get you in touch with the state cabinet for economic development to have that conversation. Some of those incentives require you to pass a test that we commonly call a but-for test, which means that but for the investment that the state makes through its economic development support, you would not conduct the project or carry out the project. So depending on how far along you are, some of those incentives may be off the table. But if you're early enough in the process, then there will be a variety of things to choose from. And so I would definitely encourage you to reach out to those folks today, if possible, tomorrow, not tomorrow, no, we're closed. And Tim, I'm sure you have a bunch of things to talk about too.
Now I can take a little more time and answer the questions. When I first started, I didn't talk about our partners that we're involved with, but we work closely with other state agencies, the ladies here front, Governor's Office of Ag Policy. And Bill, why don't you raise your hand up, because I think you play right into these kind of questions about the resources from the Ag Development Fund that could go into different type projects. Extension, just look around the room, see a lot of folks that we work with on a daily basis. A few of the things, if the project uses grain or resources from other farmers, it could qualify for Kentucky Agricultural Development Funds, either on a county level or state level. Kentucky Agricultural Finance Corporation has a lending program that may fit a project like this. From the Department of Agriculture, we work through the promotional grant program. We've been able to take advantage of that with some of the other businesses. That goes strictly for marketing and promotional type expenditures. We work with trying to open up doors with different types of markets. I didn't mention our retail program, but we work closely with Kroger, Whole Foods, Houchins, a number of others on trying to help people prepare and be introduced to those marketing venues. Economic Development Cabinet. USDA is another strong partner through Rural Development Office. The Value-Added Producer Grant may be a great opportunity for something like this. And I believe so. I think they're accepting applications. A lot of those kind of programs do require a feasibility study before the application. I'm not sure I haven't seen anybody from KCAR, Kentucky Center for Agriculture and Rural Development. Okay, I'm sorry. Slipped in on me, okay? Way back there in the cheap seats, but why don't you raise your hand? And they're a tremendous resource on helping identify different funding opportunities, wonderful on business analysis, and then also grant writing as well. So,
I will add on to what Tim said to tell you that Kentucky Fearless Distilling Company in Louisville has taken advantage of a number of these programs, and if you would like an introduction, let me know and I can get you in touch.
Other comments, questions? Questions primarily for Tim. I am Todd Clark. Sorry. Tim, restaurant rewards program. Are people using that as a stepping stone to moving in the local food direction? Do you see people, if that goes away at some point, we're not suggesting that it is, but if it went away at some point, is that going to have a huge effect on local purchases?
Appreciate that, Todd. We revamped the program this year, partly at the encouragement of the Ag Development Board. One of the things that they stress to us and any other recipients of their programs is those funds are investments. They're not long-term subsidies. And so they're strictly intended to help bridge those marketing decisions, those purchasing decisions, and to help develop a business model that will sustain itself without those funds long-term. We made a conscious decision of really working with the restaurants that participate, helping them understand the difference between just Kentucky Brown and products that are sourced from Kentucky farms. And so we came up with a 3-tiered system strictly for that program, a gold, a silver, and a bronze. The gold is something that is 100% traced back to Kentucky farms. The silver are products that have a blend of Kentucky products and other non-Kentucky products. As was mentioned, certain things that we do are seasonal, and so those restaurants need those products year-round. And at times we can source 100% from a Kentucky farm. Other times it may only be a percentage. And then the other is bronze. We have a number of products that qualify for Kentucky Proud because they're manufactured here, they're processed here, but they don't have a Kentucky agricultural component. We feel like that because we are directly involved with the restaurants, we can help them understand that, and it's a transition program. We have about 90 restaurants, and I think 98 as of today that have re-enrolled or enrolled for the first time in the Buy Local program. That entitles them to a 15% rebate on the eligible items. As I showed earlier, we're really trying to help the restaurants capitalize on those local purchases. You have the master of that here in this community is Lena Michaels. She has been able to do that. She ties those products back to the local farmer. Those names are featured on the menu in the business, recognized periodically at the restaurants. And so we're wanting to help the restaurants understand that, we're not providing those funds to just make that product cheaper, but for them to purchase that, to utilize it in their menu selection, to add value to their menu, to enhance the flavor, the product quality, and then communicate that to the patrons of the restaurant to help them understand that this is benefiting farmers in the local community. There are reasons why that restaurant is putting the extra dollars into those resources. And then if our funding dries up, they built a business model that will sustain itself beyond that. And I think she's done that marvelously. We have a number of restaurants in Louisville and in other parts of the state that are doing that equally as well. But the key is that it's not just we're subsidizing the price of that product on the menu. It's connecting that restaurant, that farmer, and that customer to understand the story.